You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
We've been getting more and more questions as people begin to learn about histamine intolerance. So I want to go over this topic today. I'm also going to direct you to stephencabral.com/1460. Today is episode 1460. And here's why. I've done a couple previous shows on histamine-based foods, how to eliminate those foods, and after you listen to today's show, if you feel it applies to you, maybe your children, some loved ones, make sure that you go back and you listen to those shows as well. Because I'm not going to have time on one show to go through all the foods to eliminate, but I give all that to you. So just remember that. Head on over to stephencabral.com/1460, and we will link up the previous shows on histamine-based issues. I think there were 2 other shows before. Super, super important. Today, though, I want to go through the 5 reasons that people have histamine issues in the first place. So, like histamine intolerance in the first place. And if you don't know what histamine issues are, let's go over those right now. Some simple signs that you or someone you know is suffering from a histamine-based issue. So, it may look like hives, or any type of itchiness, but especially like allergy-based itchiness. The eyes, the nose, the ears, your skin in general. Histamine-based issues, okay? So we call the first one hives, urticaria. We call the itchiness pruritus. So just if you've ever heard those terms, that's what that means. Also, though, really important, a lot of people feel like as they're getting these itchy-based feelings, their eyes are getting a little bit more swelled with water, or their face even looks a little bit more swollen during maybe allergy season, or they feel their throat even getting a little bit tingly, okay? So these are all signs of histamine issues. Another big one, I work with a lot of people with HPA axis dysfunction, typically just commonly called adrenal fatigue, and a lot of people have low blood pressure. Okay, they might be suffering from something called POTS, postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So low blood pressure and fainting, very commonly associated with histamine intolerance. So I just want you to know that. So chest pain is a big one. Of course, if you believe any of these are serious medical issues, please do go see your medical doctor. I'm not giving you medical advice today, but I do want to show you all of the different overlap. Because chest pain or irregular heart rate, accelerated heart rate, dizziness upon standing, all of these things can be histamine issues, or it could be a greater sign of another issue. So, please do make sure you do get checked out. Headaches, migraines, fatigue, irritability, and even a lot of skin issues. So if you see rosacea come and go, it may not necessarily be rosacea or rosacea caused by histamine issues. I know a lot of people, they have food sensitivities, which we'll get to in a moment, and because of that, their cheeks do get red. They do get flushed when they drink alcohol. That matters. It really does. And it's a sign your skin is showing you that there's something going on inside, now reflected on the outside of your skin. All right, digestive issues, heartburn is a big one. It's not always a big acid-related issue. It can be. It could be H. pylori, but also it could be a histamine issue. So when I had heartburn way back in the day, 17, 18 years old, they would put me on all sorts of different acid blockers, and I would still get acid reflux. I would have issues. It was a histamine-related issue. That was the problem. Now, if I would take antihistamines, I'll tell you why that's such a bad thing in just a moment. But if I would take antihistamines, well, then it would go away. So I would literally live on 2 Benadryl before bed and then 2 Sudafed upon waking. And I would do that through all of my teenage years. I mean, it totally destroyed my neuroendoimmune system, so my nervous system, endocrine system, and immune system. But hey, I didn't have allergies, so there's that, right? Along with the Claritin D and everything else I was being given. So just a couple others. Anxiety or panic attacks, especially if you can't relate it to anything, could absolutely be related to histamine as well. So these are the issues. I mean, think accelerated heart rate, anxiety, skin itchiness, hives, feeling irritable irritable. That could even lead to insomnia. All of these things can be almost like an allergic reaction in your body. That's what histamine is causing. It's causing those allergic-based feelings. So we want to know now, today's podcast isn't dedicated to eliminating those foods that are high in histamine, etc. I will link up that podcast, okay? We want to cover one topic each day on the show, and hopefully you're going back and listening to those back episodes. But there's 5 main reasons that people do have histamine dysregulation or an increase, which I'll talk about in a moment, of mast cells. Because mast cells are what largely produce histamine. So there's cells in the body that get activated that produce more histamine. Now, some people are more prone to it. So not everyone in my family, but myself, my mom, my grandmother, all have what's called mastocytosis, a great genetic predisposition to producing a lot of mast cells in the body. But it goes deeper than that, and I'm going to share that with you because I don't have those mastocytosis-based issues today. So I will go over that right now, but I want to share 2 parts to this. So the 2 parts that nobody ever thinks about, because usually they think about the gut in terms of histamine, and they're right. We'll go over that in a moment. But the 2 issues that most people don't think about is blood sugar dysregulation, so highs and lows in blood sugar during the day, and excess processed flour and sugar in the diet. The other one, that's a big one, are inflammatory-based fats. So let me just break that down a little bit, okay? So we have blood sugar dysregulation caused by processed food in the diet. It's a big one. But what happens is we start to get these inflammatory prostaglandins. And again, I don't want to get too deep on this today, but your body begins to create more inflammatory reactions within the body. Think omega-6s causing inflammation versus omega-3s that are anti-inflammatory. So why does this matter? Well, it's already giving you hopefully a little bit of a hint. Reduce those omega-6s, increase your omega-3s. And I've done many shows on that as well. I've done many shows on omega-3s, many shows on omega-6s. But that is why one of the things that using an omega-3 fish oil works so well with histamine-based issues. You don't want to go overboard. You actually have to start slow so your body doesn't actually have a reaction to the fish oil itself, but you can start slow and ease that up. All right. So the second one is this. Besides blood sugar dysregulation, again, eliminating the processed food, fruit is not a blood sugar dysregulator. It may be in the beginning if you're that far out of balance, but fruit is not. I mean, unless you're sitting down to 4 bananas at a meal, that's not a meal. Then that's an issue. But that's not a real diet. I mean, I'm talking about a real balanced diet, right? Making a smoothie, making an acai bowl. It has good quality vegan protein in it. You might put some flax in it, some pumpkin seeds in it. We're talking about a healthy human diet, okay? So the other thing is this. The next part is looking at your HPA axis and fatigue or adrenal fatigue-based issues. That means this. Highs and lows in cortisol can absolutely affect histamine dysregulation. When I say dysregulation, I mean it throws histamine out of whack. So it's not just high cortisol and it's not just low cortisol. If anything, it's the rise in cortisol and then the drop. Because higher levels of cortisol can actually act as an anti-inflammatory. And we know that. I mean, we absolutely know that because drugs such as Claritin and a lot of these that contain pseudoephedrine, Sudafed, absolutely spike the adrenals. And subsequently, we can reduce allergies that way. It's not healthy for sure, but in the short term, it gets you results. So what I find is that my histamine issues were worse when I had Addison's disease. I mean, they were debilitating. It was terrible. So what happens is we need a healthy level of cortisol, not too high and not too low. Again, you can run that on a stress, mood, and metabolism test, also known as the thyroid adrenal hormone. Very, very important that you know your levels. Okay. DHEA, if DHEA is too low, you're not going to be able to balance your Th1 to Th2 immune system. Th2 is chronic inflammation. That's where histamine lives. Okay? Really, really important. So we want to make sure that we balance our levels of cortisol because we also know, the two tie in perfectly. Dysregulated blood sugar typically dysregulates cortisol, and also dysregulated cortisol, high cortisol, can lead to higher blood sugar. Drop in blood sugar, not a good thing in terms of inflammation. So those are the first two that we want to take a look at. And if you haven't started working those, I do recommend that. Number 3 is this. I'm going to save the gut for last. I'll save the gut for last because we really want to get into that. But number 3 is some people genetically, that's why genetics matter. They don't ruin your life and they don't run your life, but genetics matter. I personally have methylation-based issues, and I'm more prone to mastocytosis, creating mast cells. Not a good combination. Because what happens is, if you do have impaired methylation, there's something called histamine N-methyltransferase. And anytime you hear ACE at the end, methyltransferase, that's an enzyme, right? So lactase, proteases, cellulase. ACE at the end means it's an enzyme, and it is used for breaking down histamine. And we need this as part of our, basically what's involved in the liver's breakdown of histamine. So remember, your liver does more than just detoxify plastics and phthalates and mold and things like that from the environment. It also breaks down egregious forms of estrogen, overloaded forms of histamine. Now, let me just step aside for a second. We need histamine in our body. So histamine is actually a major player in helping us to prevent cancer too. So we need histamine. We can't just not produce histamine. The problem is we can't have too much. And histamine fits the rain barrel effect perfectly. People are fine, they're fine. Then all of a sudden, it's been building up. They don't know it. It's right at the top of that rain barrel. And they go out and they have an aged steak. They have a glass of red wine. Next thing they know, their eyes are itchy, their face is flushed, their throat's a little closed up. Not good, right? Heart palpitations. That's a histamine reaction. Well, you overflowed your rain barrel. You were doing okay. And then you had aged food. You had fermented food in the wine. And maybe it was a smoked rub on the meat. And then all of a sudden now you have the smoked, you have the aged, and you have fermented food. And those are the big 3 in terms of foods, right? Leaving food in the refrigerator for a longer period of time. Bacteria begins to grow. Histamine begins to grow. Very, very important to look at that. Okay. Now, some people don't have as much of the other enzyme. So we have one enzyme, histamine, and methyltransferase. But there's one more. And this one's produced in the gut, and we'll talk about this towards the end. And that's called diamine oxidase. If you've been listening to the Cabral concept, you've heard me talk about this before, that your body needs to produce this enzyme, but it is mainly produced in the gut. So if your gut's not functioning well, how do you produce the enzyme? You can't, right? Just like you can't produce serotonin as well. So I know that we want to treat depression. We absolutely do. It's a very serious dis-ease of the body. But we should be looking at the gut. If your body's not producing enough serotonin, ask why. Ask why. If your body's not producing enough diamine oxidase, ask why. Just don't blame it fully on genetics. It's okay. You can put a little blame on genetics, but blaming genetics doesn't do too much because you're not going to change those genetics. You're really not. We don't have a way to change genetics really even too much. We have a way to change genetics in the future, 20, 30 years from now, like really be able to edit genes before birth, but not really once you're born. Okay? So that's important to look at that. There's no change anytime soon. I've talked with the best PhD and minds in the business in terms of the field of genetics. We're not editing our genes right now. We will use stem cells and we will use other things in order to better regulate our systems and bodies. And I think that could be absolutely amazing. It will be amazing in the next 20, 30 years. But we're not editing out our specific genes. Not that I've seen. And I keep up with this because I love the field of anti-aging. Okay, there's one part, which is that some people are born with less of the good gut bacteria that actually begins to break down histamine as well and produce that diamine oxidase. All right, so that was number 3. Number 4, most people would never guess. And it's actual medications that you may be given that some people are even promoting today that could be harming your body's ability to degrade histamines. The first one, I'm going to start right off the bat. Many people using aspirin, or they're using Advil or ibuprofen, some type of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, or they're using diuretics for like high blood pressure, or antibiotics, or they're on antidepressants. Those are just some of the medications that actually weaken and lower your body's ability to produce diamine oxidase, which is the enzyme used to degrade histamine that's floating around in your bloodstream. So we have to start to look at other causal factors, which is why in our private practice we ask, what medications are you on? Don't feel bad. What medications are you on? Because we need to know. We're not treating you. We're not, practicing medicine. We're helping to look at underlying root causes. That's what a good integrative health practitioner is going to help you do. Look at underlying root causes. Not practice medicine, not diagnose disease, not treat disease, not look for a cure. Because if you're looking for a cure, again, I applaud the efforts. I get it, but we're walking for cancer. We're marching for Alzheimer's. We're doing all of these things. Listen, if you're looking for the silver bullet, it's not a very good idea. Cancer is multi-causal. Alzheimer's is multi-causal. I've done many podcasts on this. I mean, we have 25 really good factors that can lead to Alzheimer's. I did a podcast on it. I did a 3-part series, and then I went through all the different parts. There's not one thing. There's a handful that are really bad, but there's not one thing. Same with cancer. So this is important to look at that. Medications. Believe it or not, antihistamines, the same things that you are taking, the Benadryl, etc., the same thing you're taking that are helping to decrease histamines can actually cause an overgrowth of the negative bacteria that we're going to talk about next that allow for more histamine to be produced. And probably the most controversial one, because I know there's a lot of longevity people out there recommending it, and that's why, again, I urge you that whatever you're listening to, continue to keep listening to it. Listen to all the favorite practitioners, all of those things. I'm telling you right now, I have no dog in the race. I will always bring it back to the truth. I will always show you both sides of the equations, okay? People are talking about metformin as it's this amazing, amazing drug. Listen, it does some amazing things. There's no doubt about it. It definitely helps with blood sugar regulation. So for diabetes, it could be very, very powerful, right? We know that. We're now looking at it in terms of at least people with diabetes who take it may get less chance for cancer. Here's the problem. There are side effects to every drug. Metformin blocks diamine oxidase and may cause histamine intolerance. Doesn't seem like that great of thing. So let's just be careful overall, especially with using these so-called smart drugs when we don't necessarily know all of the different methodologies and pathways in which they work. All right. So let me move on. The last one is this, and the most important. If you have an imbalance of gut bacteria with more negative bacteria, buildup of bad bacteria in the guts, you are most likely producing more of your own histamine from that bacteria. So let me repeat that. If you have SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, constipation, anything that would allow you a buildup of bacteria, specifically in the small intestine, may help you, not in a positive way, but may allow for more histamine-producing bacteria. Now, here's the thing. We need that bacteria. I want to repeat this. I'm about to read you the bacterial strains, at least that we know of in 2020, but we need the bacteria. We just can't have it overgrown because histamine does help us. Okay? Helps us actually balance a normal level of inflammation. So we need that. Okay, here they are. Lactobacillus casei, Lactobacillus delbrueckii, and I might be pronouncing some of this. Lactobacillus bulgaris or bulgaricus. Lactobacillus reuteri, one of the most important ones right there. We need that, especially for kids. A lot of kids didn't get enough growing up. Lactobacillus lactis, or I should say Lactococcus lactis. Enterococcus, and various forms of E. coli. Now remember, E. coli we need in our gut as well. It's supposed to be there. It helps with many of our B vitamins, like B12, to be manufactured. We just can't have these overgrown. It doesn't mean you shouldn't take them if they're part of your probiotic right now. It just means we can't have them overgrown. Now, based on new research, we also know, though, there are forms of bacteria in your gut that actually help to degrade histamine. Pretty impressive. Those are Bifidobacterium infantis, Bifidobacterium breve, Bifidobacterium infans, Bifidobacterium longum, and Lactobacillus plantarum, Lactobacillus rhamnosus, Lactobacillus salivarius, and Lactobacillus gasseri. So pretty impressive now. We are finding certain strains do certain things. And we are actually right now in the works with developing one of the first ever probiotics meant to decrease histamines in the body. So you would take this along with, let's say, a daily probiotic support. You would take this along with whatever your favorite probiotic is right now. And you add more of the actual strains that help to decrease potentially allergies and histamine-based issues. Okay, pretty impressive. I mean, that's why I love the research. And it's ongoing, right? It's ongoing because we have a lot of brilliant scientists and a lot of brilliant people out there looking at these specific things. For right now, I urge you to go back to the previous shows because I give you things if you're dealing with this hives and skin issues and headaches and fatigue and irritability and anxiety and all these different allergy-based issues. I give you a protocol that you can use. It is our allergy-based protocol. And it contains in there the vitamin C, it contains the quercetin, the B vitamins, it contains things like bromelain and magnesium, the omega-3s. All of these things are super important, right? Super important. So go back, check out those previous shows. Hopefully this was a little eye-opening today to realize that there are many underlying root causes. And then below that, like histamine intolerance could be one of your underlying root causes of why you're not feeling that well right now. But now there's underlying root causes of histamine intolerance. So as you peel back that onion, everything starts to expose itself. And as you do that, you learn more, you grow, and here's the nice thing. When you really figure it out, it's not coming back. Like that's the thing. It's not coming back because you figured it out, you're mastering it, and now you rebalance your body as well as your genetics. Thank you so much for tuning into today's show. I appreciate you. And as always, if this show was helpful, please do feel free to share it with anyone you believe it could serve. Are you ready to heal yourself and then go on to heal others? If so, the Integrative Health Practitioner Institute can help you discover proven functional medicine protocols that blend the best of 7 different healing disciplines from around the world. I personally share with you the exact handouts and protocols I use in my private practice that enable people to get well, lose the weight, and live longer, stronger. I want to pass this information on to the next generation of health coaches, and that is exactly why I created IHP. We are the future of the health coaching industry, and the skills and knowledge you will learn will make you an in-demand certified health coach anywhere in the world. Although we have many medical professionals taking the IHP certifications, no experience is necessary, and half our members have no previous health certifications. At the Integrative Health Practitioner Institute, our motto is a health coach in every home. Our goal is that you take this knowledge and then share it with family, friends, loved ones, your community, or in a practice where you create a career you love and can be proud of. The global IHP community is filled with some of the most kind and caring people in the world, and we can't wait to welcome you into our world soon. For more information or to set up a discovery call with one of our IHP Health Coach graduates, simply head over to integrativehealthpractitioner.org.